Welcome back. Before we went on the break, we were talking about the center of education in Baghdad and how all of that area was flourishing, and it had become a place that was actually providing guidance to the rest of the world. So, Humayun, you were talking about that university and the library that was established in Baghdad. What were the other institutes parallel to that?
Well, there were many. At that time, education was flourishing in almost all of the nations who were not defeated or suppressed by any other bigger nation. So we see that in India, there were several institutes, including one of the biggest ones was the university in Taxila. At the same time, China was also flourishing in education, and China had provided many of its educational texts and guidance to the nation in Japan as well. At the same time, the Aztecs and Inca empires were also spending a lot of efforts on education in their specific Southern American states as well.
Mayas were also in
Yeah.
at that time, and they
One
were
of the
very
major
advanced
Aztec
in,
nations were the Mayans.
yes, and they were very advanced in astronomy and the study of
Yeah, there's a lot of history as well. They were very good in astronomy and mathematics quite long ago, about maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, when they created the Mayan calendar as well,
yes,
based on their mathematical calculations. But we see that in this time as well, they were until the arrival of the Spanish conquistadors in the Southern America, Aztecs and Inca were flourishing very well.
very well. But at the same time, when we see this education, how would you say, flood of education all over the world, there was still some area which was sitting in the dark age. And this is the area which actually was flourishing before this Muslim empire.
Yeah, as I said, that there is a specific era on each kind of nation as well, maybe because of the wars that they had gone through and the struggle of power that they had gone through. The Roman Empire, or the empire, different small pockets that were present in Europe at that time, we do not find a lot of information about them because most of their efforts were either present in the close vicinity of the churches and monasteries.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing that we find is that the king of Franks, Charlemagne, he did some efforts to popularize education in his specific area, in his empire.
But at that time, we also see that Muslim empire was established in Spain, and a lot of knowledge from Baghdad and all those areas moved towards Spain, and Spain became a kind of center where they were flourishing in mathematics, in construction, in astrology, and a lot of those areas.
Yeah, many different fields. And during this whole period, there were many great Muslim scientists, including Ibn Sina, Ibn Hashim, Al-Khwarizmi, Al-Biruni. And in their own specific fields, they did a lot of work for the expansion of knowledge.
And then we see that all of a sudden, around 14th, 15th century, all of this knowledge kind of starts disappearing. And then, how would you say, the center of power kind of starts shifting. And this dark side, which was Europe at that time, kind of starts going, gaining the knowledge. And the one that were flourishing with the, downfall of the Spanish Empire, everything started going down. So walk us through that a little bit.
After, since the program is not focused on the history of nations, we would not go into a lot of details. But once the center of the Muslim Empire shifted to Spain, on their way there were many other things that they established. For example, in 900, around 950, 975 AD, they established the Al-Azhar University in Cairo, in Egypt. And that was also one of the major institutes, and it actually went up to the postgraduate studies, and it was known as the Jamia, the university at that time, a true university. After being defeated in Spain, and maybe before that, we see that there was a renaissance in the Western world.
Okay.
In the
Western Europe.
In Western Europe,
Yes.
in the empires that held Christianity.
Mainly held by the Christian Church.
Yes.
Yes.
And that renaissance was actually a revolt against the narrow-mindedness of the Dark and Middle Ages. And they wanted to get out of that kind of stillness and narrow-mindedness, and so once again there was a period of flourishing of education in that area as well.
So this Renaissance actually continued for what, about 200 years, 200 something years, until the European nations started becoming more interested in education and started, their journey towards the development.
Well, the Renaissance period that we see, that we read in history, is about 14th century, the 1300s. It began in Italy and then spread to, in 15th and 16th century, spread to the rest of the Europe.
Yes.
And that is about the time when we see that the European countries or the nations, the small pockets of power actually started expanding once again. In 1600s, for example, the French came to the current country of Canada, where we sit today.
Yes.
They established the whole fur trade. They entered from the eastern side on the Atlantic and then came up to the western side over the period of next 200-300
also
years.
Came around that time. And
the Spanish conquistadors, the conquests went to the Southern American area.
Yes.
The British Empire came to America, and there were a lot of battles in this area, so we will not go into the details of those political issues going on in that time. But after the Renaissance in the Europe, we see that 1700s, we start seeing the great scientists once again flourishing, and they started those major inventions. For example, Newton was in 1600s. In that 17th century, he wrote his famous work known as Principia Mathematica,
yes,
and in which he explained the 3 laws of motion that we still use even to go to the moon.
Yes, exactly. Now, it's very interesting that when one area in the world is developed and it's spreading the light of education, other areas are kind of go down around that time. So I think it's a struggle of power as well. Whatever the nation is on top, whatever the nation has better opportunities available to them, they're able to flourish.
And also I would say that this is a natural cycle which goes through, and Renaissance has to come after every dark age. But there have to be some reason for that.
Some reason.
The struggle for knowledge, the struggle for letting go of the old ways, and the struggle for understanding the reason of existence of the whole nation, which brings the nation forward.
This is very interesting that, right after that we start seeing a lot of scientists and stuff, and these European nations, they start developing, and they develop to a level and they gain so much power that they were able to conquer pretty much the whole world.
Yes.
I mean, talk about the British Empire in 18th century, there was no sunset on their whole empire. So these people went around the world and they established their empire. But as if we read in the history, I mean, whatever we have been reading in the books, it tells us that wherever they went, the first thing they did was establish the educational system.
Yeah. And
was it because of their love of education, or was it
I think they had understood, after going through the dark ages and then going through the Renaissance period, they had understood that education is one thing that if you let it go, your society will start going into the decline. And that's not much different than the education of the earliest Greek thinkers, who said that the health or the strength of a society is not much different, or is exactly related to the strength of the educational system of that society. So if you let go the education, you let go your values and your traditions, and eventually the society goes into a decay.
This is what I would call a lesson well learned from the history.
Yes.
And I hope we learn that lesson also. We'll have to continue talking more on this particular topic. We have to take a short break. When we come back, I would like to ask you about the different inventions that happened and how rapidly the education system changed in 19th century and the 20th century, I mean, which we have actually experienced as well, and how the education system has totally transformed. Stay with us. We'll be back after a short break.